Okay, moving along, we are going to talk about the any other weapon shit. I've divided up into categories. We're going to talk about blah blah blah. And my Ronald Reagan mug. If coffee didn't exist, I would die. Okay, 2 updates. Number 1, a few weeks ago I talked about Lieutenant Augustine Kim, who was the Army officer who had his weapons confiscated in the nation's capital and all that other bullshit, and I said it was the most disgusting firearms case you've ever heard. I said that he did not get his weapons back. Well, they're giving him his weapons back, so that's a good update. Speaking of Washington, D.C., and speaking of gun rights, Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer was robbed for the 2nd time in less than a year. I hope they didn't break the lock on the way in. Anyway. Any other weapon is defined by the NFA, National Firearms Act, 1934, and the modern ATF, blah, 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 etc., etc. Destructive devices. Now, these are the weapons you have to get a shitload of paperwork to buy, if you're allowed to buy them at all. Now, keep this in mind. If you look at the definition, 1934 definition of silencer and short-barreled long gun, buying them today is exactly as it was buying them 70 years ago. The only difference is the tax stamp is a little more affordable in today's economy. Okay, the machine guns, the difference is the machine gun has to be made after May 19th, 1986. In 1934, there was no September 11th. There was no Oklahoma City. There was no global war on terrorism. There was no underwear bomber. There were no improvised explosive devices. There were no roadside bombs and release killing our troops, okay? So, there was no domestic terrorism. So if you look, well, the Klan was domestic terrorism in the 1930s, but because they're from the Democratic Party, we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, the 1934 definitions and how to get this bomb or that bomb, I am willing to bet my college education that the government has changed the procedures, especially since September 11th and other things. Okay, so if I write to you the exact definition of how to get this explosive device legally, understand that that definition will be obsolete completely. I'm just going to tell you what the definitions are. A destructive device is any explosive, incendiary device, poison gas, bomb, grenade, rocket having a propellant of more than 4 ounces. Missiles having an explosive charge of more than a 1/4 ounce. I guess those little bottle rockets using the 4th of July are legal. Mine and similar device. They decide what similar devices, please. Okay? Now understand that the Second Amendment is about defense. Okay? Now, the Supreme Court, 2010 I made a video and I held my term paper up to the camera. My term paper was on self-defense. And I mentioned a Supreme Court case where the Supreme Court itself said you are not allowed to use booby traps that disperse deadly force. So in other words, if you want to set up a booby trap in your house to stop the burglar, a bear trap will cut the burglar's leg off, so you can't have a bear trap. You might be able to have a giant net that comes down and traps him, but you're not allowed to set booby traps on your property that disperse deadly force. Okay. So, the Second Amendment is about defense. And because of that Supreme Court ruling, you do not have a constitutional right to put a landmine in your fucking front lawn, or to have an explosive charge blow up the door when the intruder comes in. Okay? So you don't have that right. Also, carrying weapons concealed on the street and defending yourself in your home with weapons. If someone attacks me on the street and they put me in a position where I feel like my life is in danger, and I throw a hand grenade at them, and the hand grenade explodes and they die, well, they attacked me. So me killing them is okay if I felt they were going to kill me first. But when the hand grenade explodes, it's going to send shrapnel around and hurt other people. So you do not have a constitutional right to walk around the street with bombs and shit, because other people might get hurt when you use it to defend yourself. On top of that, what are you going to fucking do? Say, you know, the guy threatened to kill me, so I went to his house and put a bomb on his front door? Nah. Okay? Home defense. Let's face it. Guy's in your house. He threatened your family. Are you going to shoot a fucking rocket launcher at him? I don't think so. So, you cannot tell the courts, I need a bomb. I have a constitutional right to have a bomb. No. You don't. Believe me, you don't. There are explosive devices that are used for construction. You have to blow up giant boulders to clear land to make a road. Okay? You have to blow up and implode. Implode means collapse an old home so you can build a new one. Well, you have to have a special license to do that shit. You have to have a special license to get the explosive device. If you watch the 1995 movie Heat with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro, they use an explosive device to blow a door off an armored car to go inside and rob the armored car. Al Pacino says, tell the bomb squad to look at the explosive, I want to trace it. The explosive came back as being very common. This is LA, California. There were 4 or 5 states surrounding California where you could legally buy the explosive with a driver's license. Okay? I am willing to bet my life that that has changed in a lot of states, if not at the federal level, because you can use a construction bomb to kill somebody. And with global terrorism and problems with homeland security, I imagine it's more difficult. So, you need a license to become a demolition expert. You most likely, depending on what state you live in, will have to log several hundred, if not several thousand hours being apprenticed to a experienced explosives expert. You may have to take a written test depending on what city you live in or state you live in. If you hire a guy to come in and put your cabinets in, no one gives a shit. If you hire a guy to dig and build an extension onto your house and drive in trucks of lumber and do piping and electrical wiring, you need a permit from the city. So I imagine that if you're going to set up a fucking bomb and implode a building, I imagine the city wants a permit. And if the city's smart, they'll have police officers on the scene to keep back the crowds and stuff like that. Okay? Now, let's assume that you lived in a state that said you go to the bomb dealer, okay, whatever, and you buy an explosive device to implode a building. Okay? The state says the dealer will transport the explosive device to the site, give the explosive device to a police officer. The police officer will give you the explosive device, and the police officer will watch you set it off on the condemned building. That would be legal. If the individual company said they will drive the explosive device to the site for you, and they will hand it over to the police officer will hand it over to you, and that's company policy, that would be okay too. So you don't have a constitutional right to own bombs, don't even bother asking, and in this post-September 11th world, the government is going to ask you every question you can imagine before you buy an explosive device. Also, keep in mind, they're harder to disarm than guns. More could go wrong than guns. The gun fires a bullet, the bomb explodes, and even if you have an implosion bomb collapses the building onto itself as opposed to spreading the building out. God forbid you rig it wrong, God forbid the wind blows wrong, it is still possible for something to go wrong. That's why when you blow up a building, the police come, they set up barriers, and they have people staying many, many, many hundreds of feet away. That way, God forbid, something does go wrong, it is less likely for them to be killed. And as for poisonous gases, don't even fucking bother with that. I mean, you will go to prison forever. Now, fireworks. Fireworks are exploding devices, but they are not as powerful and they're not designed to kill. So many states handle fireworks on the state level. Some states will give a firework to anyone. Other states, like New York for instance, mostly states up in the Northeast basically, require that only pyrotechnicians use fireworks. Okay, we have the Macy's 4th of July fireworks display in New York City, which is handled by professional fireworks technicians. Okay, an average citizen does not have a right to buy a firework in every state. Now, I remember a time where friends and relatives would have boxes full of these packages with different colors on them. And there will be a white string at the bottom of the box. And if you lit the white string on fire and ran very fast, many explosions came out and many colors came out. Now, rule of thumb, do not ask questions and do not talk to the cops. Now, I remember an era where the cops would close their eyes, turn their head, and sing a lullaby if they caught you with a box with colors that had a string attached to the bottom. Okay? I remember a time when the police would sell you the box with the colors with the string attached. Okay? Things are different now. Okay? Many states are starting to clamp down. Some states, I think, may have threatened felony prosecution depending on what types you have and how many you have. Understand this. It is not worth getting arrested and getting put on trial for a fireworks display. Okay? If they threaten felony prosecution, it is even less worth it. Okay? Because you're not going to go to prison for having fireworks, but you are going to get a couple of years probation. You are going to have to pay a big ass fine, and you are going to have a felony mark on your record, which means no more voting and no more guns. Okay? It is not worth it today. 15 years ago, I would have said, who gives a fuck? Now, it's really not worth it anymore. So if you live in a state that says no to fireworks, suck it up or take your family on a summer vacation to a state that does. Now, there are also other devices that are called destructive devices. Cannons. Okay? A cannon is legally defined as any weapon that fires a projectile larger than 50 inches in diameter. The 50 caliber machine gun, that bullet, that's the limit. Okay? We have 50 caliber rifles. You've seen them. Bolt action and automatic action. Yeah. Okay? If you watch a sniper rifle, 50 caliber, that thing can travel the length of 5 football fields and cut through steel this thick like it's paper. Okay? The Coast Guard uses those rifles in helicopters to shoot engines out of boats that are running towards Florida with cocaine in them. Okay? You can cut a car in half with a fucking 50 caliber rifle bullet. Okay? The propellant is extremely powerful, and even though they're legal in most states, believe it or not, it's going to be hard for you to find a shooting range that is physically capable of containing it. Now, you cannot use that to defend yourself, because what the fuck are you going to say? a guy was a mile and a half away from me, and I felt threatened by that. So I whipped out my 50 caliber rifle and fired at him and took his fucking head off. Well, in Iraq and Afghanistan, that might be understandable. But here in U.S. soil, if the guy's a mile and a half away from you, he's not a threat to you. So if you have a 50 caliber rifle, can't use it for defense. Too fucking big. Okay? Use it for recreation only. The rifles cost over $2 grand. The ammunition probably costs $10 a round. Okay? So good luck convincing the government to give you a gun that fires larger than 50 caliber. Okay? Not gonna happen. Maybe if you're a museum curator and you want to buy a fucking cannon from World War II to display in the museum, then you could talk about that. And the government may even tell you to disable it, to have a gun can come in and disable it. But aside from anyone outside of a museum, buying a cannon, not likely to happen. By the way, there's something else. Sorry about that. Now, a disguised gun. Okay? A disguised gun. And there was an episode of the History Channel. I don't know if I could find it. Oh, by the way, my last video on Class 3 weapons, I put a link to Gangster Guns, Tales of the Gun, Gangster Guns at the bottom of it. Very good episode of Tales of the Guns. There was an episode of Tales of the Gun. I can't find it here on YouTube. It's called Guns at the Bazaar. They have an ATF specialist who's hiding his face and voice. Wasn't involved in Fast and Furious years ago. He's in Washington, D.C., and he's showing us disguised guns. A pen gun. A pack of cigarettes gun. A suitcase with a Ruger 22 in it. And it's wired so that from the handle of the suitcase you can pull the trigger and pew, 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 shoot Ruger 22. Cane gun. These guns are actually illegal in most states, believe it or not. And they're covered under the AOB ban. Now, a cane gun, how am I going to put this? Okay. These guns have several problems. Number one, they're all single shot. Number two, they all fire the weakest shot. They have little handheld guns, fire 22 caliber, if not 22 short. The larger guns fire 410 shot shell. They all hold one round. They all take forever to get ready. For instance, they have you know the tire gauge, you put the tire gauge on and check tire pressure? Tire gauge gun, pen gun, this gun, that gun. You take the gun, unscrew it, put one round in, screw it up together. Move a pin, and the pin releases the spring, fires the bullet. The cane gun. Take the cane, unscrew it, put one 410 shot shell in there, screw it. Something happens, pick it up, twist it, turn it, trigger comes down, pull the trigger. Okay? A lot of these guns take 3 seconds to prepare to fire. Now, under pressure, when your life is in danger, 3 seconds might as well be forever, because in 3 seconds the bad guy will have the drop on you, and on top of that your hands are tight and sweaty and your brain is turned off and your heart is racing a mile a minute. You physically won't be able to do the fine motor skills to prepare the gun, to prepare the gun to fire. On top of that, under pressure your brain will forget to do it. Okay, so no one in their right mind has any illusion that I can prepare this gun and use it in time. Also, these guns are ridiculously unsafe. You know, some of them require 3 steps to operate. Pull this, twist that, turn that, which means not likely to go off accidentally. Other guns, I push the button or squeeze this or that and it goes off. Pack of cigarette gun. You squeeze the sides and the gun goes boom. Now, no safety device. No real trigger, just an area you squeeze. Some of them. Some of a trigger, some of an area you squeeze, some of a pin you move in or out. Okay, no positive safety. no firing pin block, no loaded chamber indicator, no safety feature on any gun that you can think of in any shape, way, or form that might reduce the chance of an accident is on some of these disguised pocket guns. Now, you put the pack of cigarette gun in your pocket and you fall, or you brush against something, or you hug someone. Or let's make a real stupid joke here, okay? You have a pack of cigarette gun. It's a pack of cigarettes with a tube in it that fires a 22 bullet. Okay? You put that in your cigarette pocket up here. Okay? You lay down on your stomach. You ask a girl to walk on your back. Yeah, that's fucking stupid. She puts her foot down over here. As she puts her foot down, her foot becomes the trigger. And she can go like that and stomp on you, and the bullet will go off. Where are you laying? On your stomach, on your chest. So that bullet is gonna come up in here. Okay? So a lot of these guns, you put it in your pocket, you twist or turn or fall, or sit down the wrong way, these guns will go off and they will inflict injury on your physical body, or the person you're hugging or kissing, or the person you're sitting next to. Okay? These guns can go off very easily. So there is no rhyme or reason to have these guns. If I were to buy these guns, it will be because I have a display case and I want to put them in the display case to show my friends, bragging rights. I would never load them, I would never fire them, and I would never carry them concealed. If you ever get to check out that video, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm looking at the video with my mouth open. These fucking guns will go off over the drop of a dime, literally. You can literally have it in your pocket and fumble around and go off, hit you in the fucking leg. So, disguised guns are for antique hunters. Do not put them in your pocket at all. They're totally unsafe. You might as well have a fucking loaded stick of dynamite in your pocket. Have a lit stick of dynamite in your pocket. Antique guns. Any gun made, I've heard 1891, I've heard 1898. Must depend on what mood the ATF is in. Any gun made before that period is exempt from all bans. That means you don't need any paperwork, you don't need any documentation. If you watch porn stars, they do not have FFL licenses. Yet they buy, sell, and trade guns all the time because the guns are before all these bans. 1891, 1898, shit like that. Rick said he will not buy a gun made before 1891, I think. Now, antique guns could be muskets. The point is, what are the odds of a musket being used to commit a crime? What are the odds of you getting ammunition for a musket readily? Cannons, okay? There was a time when Rick bought a few cannons. One cannon he bought was from the Spanish-American War. Now, his gun expert, his gun expert said that you are not allowed to buy ammunition for the gun. Yes, you could buy the cannon, and it's on fucking wagon wheels, and it's as big as I am, but you can't have the ammunition for it. So the ATF will say, okay, you can buy the gun, and you don't need a background check, but you're not buying the ammunition. Let's face it, you can't fire a cannon because the cannon ball, or whatever the projectile is, will go over a mile away, and where are you going to get a shooting range for that? Nowhere. How are you going to transport it? On a fucking truck. Okay? So, these antique cannons are for museums, and they're for rich guys that have armories in their mansion, okay? That's about it. Now, I would ask for documentation, because if you buy a cannon and they cost about $30,000, Rick paid about $30,000 for one. If you buy a cannon for $30,000 or $40,000 and the cannon was made after the cutoff, guess what? You have a fucking illegal weapon. Okay? And the government is going to take it from you, which means you're going to be out $30,000 or $40,000. Plus, you got to get a lawyer now and go to court and defend yourself. Having an illegal weapon is a strict liability crime. Okay? I have a machine gun. The machine gun was made after May 19th, 1986. I'm still guilty. maybe you can get the charges dropped. Maybe you can just plead guilty of disorderly conduct and pay a fine and tell the judge, listen, Your Honor, I honestly thought I was within my right. I'm sorry I made a mistake. But if you buy it and it's not made before the date of an antique gun, you're in trouble. Have it checked out, have an expert verify it, sign off on it. Okay? And yes, if you have an antique cannon and the government tells you do not put a projectile in it or do not buy ammunition, you could put broken bottles and rocks in there and fire that. But you're going to get in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. Okay? But odds are no one I'm talking to has $40,000 sitting around the house. Okay? Disabled guns. Disabled guns are any gun, or in this case explosive device, that is no longer functional. If you take a gun and pour cement down the barrel, it is no longer a gun. It's a paperweight. Okay? Now, you should get a firearms expert, a gunsmith, to give you documentation. That way, if the cops find it, the cops aren't like, wait a minute, you had a machine gun and you poured cement in yesterday because you didn't want to get caught with it. No, 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 no. The cement was poured in it 3 years ago. Here's documentation. Okay? So get an expert to disable it for you and give you documentation. Also, explosive devices, okay? You want to buy a hand grenade from World War I or World War II, okay? Do not take anyone's word for it that it is disabled, because A, if it's not, you're committing a federal crime and you have a fucking live bomb in your house, okay? Have an explosives expert examine the grenade to show that it has been de-weaponed and give you documentation for it. Also, keep in mind, keep it in your fucking house, because if you have a hand grenade that is disabled and you put it in your pocket, walk around somewhere and pull it out and show it to your friend, you're gonna cause a fucking panic, okay? So, cannons, exploding devices, shit like that, make sure the paperwork is authentic. Make sure you have an expert look at it yourself. Don't rely on anybody else. Have your own expert come in. Make sure it's disabled. Okay? And it's not a good idea to show it to a lot of people. Something I forgot to mention, I'm going to mention it now. Smooth bore handguns. Now, a handgun with a forward vertical grip, I talked about that in one of my videos a few months ago. That is an AOW too. AOW also. These AOW tax stamps are usually $5. Not much. Okay? Now, let's just take an example. This is the Serbu Shorty. I can get a Mossberg 500 version or a Remington 870 version. This is the handgun. It has no buttstock, only a pistol grip. It is a handgun. It holds 2 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber. Now, that is legal here. I can buy that. Here's what I have to do. Serbu has links on their page to firearms dealers willing to work with them. You need to have a special Class 3 dealer in order to buy a Class 3 weapon. Now, there might be other dealers around, but the ones that Serbu is sending me to are on the other side of the state. So, here's what I have to do. I have to pick up the phone, call the guy, tell the guy to order the weapon for me. When the weapon comes into his shop, I have to drive there. It could be a 2-hour drive. My county, I'll do registration next week. My county, my state registers handguns, not long guns. This is a handgun. I have to fill out one form for the county. Not big deal. $3 check. $3. Okay. I fill out the form for the county. The dealer puts his stamp on it. Put a $3 check in it. Put it in my pocket. I fill out that extensive ATF form. Send the form to the ATF. 4 months later, the ATF stamps it, signs it, sends it back to my dealer. The dealer calls me, tells me it's ready. I take the form for the county registration mail it to the county. A week later, the county comes back saying, yes, we acknowledge your registration. Okay? I don't have to ask my county to give me permission to buy a gun like you do in New York City. I tell my county I've already bought the gun, I'm registering it, and if the county says no to me, they have to have a good reason, like I'm being indicted, or I'm a convicted felon or some shit, okay? But I go there, pick the gun up. Now, the MSRP on this gun is, I looked at it a minute ago. $774.99. The MSRP on this gun is $455. Now, telling the ATF you own a Class 3 weapon is like telling Ted Bundy you have long straight hair parted in the middle. Okay. So, now, you cannot carry this gun concealed, okay? Let's be realistic about that, okay? Look how fucking big this is. Look how heavy it is, okay? You cannot carry it concealed. It's like having a baby strapped to your hip all day. Also, you cannot cover it, conceal it, unless you're wearing a trench coat. You cannot hide this thing. Also, if I'm in the street and I'm attacked and I need to draw my weapon to defend myself, I do not want to be firing 12-gauge shotgun shells around. Not in public. Too dangerous. So this would be a home defense device only. A home defense device only. Now, there's an episode there's a video of Dylan Klebold. Forget that it's Dylan Klebold. He's out in the woods with his friends. They're firing guns. I don't think he had the gun he used to commit the attacks. I think he had another gun that was similar to this, only illegally owned, obviously. He fired it, and it damn near flew out of his hands. Also, you're supposed to hold the shotgun up, fire it. Now, it's very, very difficult to control this in a relaxed situation. Even worse, under pressure. Okay? If I'm firing this under pressure, it's entirely possible it will fly out of my hand. Now, if I shoot the bad guy and he dies, it's okay this flew out of my hand because the bad guy's dead. But if there's another bad guy behind him, do I want to have a broken wrist with my gun flying out of my hand? No. Do I want to have my jaw, nose, and cheekbone broken and teeth knocked out? No. Okay? The good news about this gun is you can maneuver it in your close quarters of your home more easily. The bad news is everything else, okay? The price, $225 more than this. Plus waiting 4 to 5 months for the ATF tax stamp and registering it with the state as a handgun. This, okay, this holds, this is the new version. This foregrip here, where the pump is, that has a rail for a light or a forward vertical grip on it. Now, this holds 8 rounds. This holds 3. This has a buttstock, which means when I fire it, it's going to be easy to control. Okay? This, I call my dealer, tell him to order it. He orders it. I go in, I give him the money, I do the background check, and I take it home that night. No waiting period, no registration, no ATF. So, if I had to choose, I would choose this. Because how much ammunition can I buy for $225? A lot. I could also buy, I guarantee you, for $225, I could buy the best forward vertical grip, the best tactical light on the market. Okay? This is a fad. Unless you are very, very, very good at controlling shotguns, this means nothing to you. You just can't fucking use it. This is going to be a little harder to maneuver in tight quarters, but I'd rather have 5 additional shots, and I'd rather be able to control the gun. Because if you can't control the gun, you have 0 shots. You have none. Okay? So that's my clarity on all these guns and shit like that. Next time, we are going to do registration. We're just going to talk about registration, you know, your thoughts, my thoughts, shit like that. What do you think about it? What do I think about it? My position isn't as soft as it was years ago.